December. I'm so happy I finally got to see this. This is on Netflix. This is directed by Todd Haynes, who previously has directed films like Far From Heaven and Carol. And this stars Natalie Portman, Julianne Moore, and, as you may have heard, Charles Melton, who is sort of using this as his breakthrough role. For those who don't know who Charles Melton is, he played Reggie on Riverdale. And that, to me, is hilariously weird that the kind of the last major thing that he did was playing a high schooler in Riverdale, and now we're supposed to be like, oh, he's actually in his 30s. And now he has kids of the age of the cast he was playing just a hot second ago in Riverdale. So, no wonder those kids wanted to age up and time jump and everything there towards the end of Riverdale, so they could get out of high school. I didn't realize how old they actually were. But this, obviously, Charles was like, can I stop playing high school football? Thank you, that would be great. But now he's in this film, and he is getting accolades. He's already won a couple of awards, or / Critics Circle I don't know, acclaim. I don't know what certificates. I don't know what they give. What does the New York Film Critics Circle give out? Do they email somebody? Send out a tweet? I don't know. I have no idea what you get from them. But he was named Best Supporting Actor from the New York Film Critics Circle. So, is it valid? Let's talk about it. This film does have audio description. It is really well done, and it's done by a narrator I've never heard of before, and I'm intrigued by that. So, props to that. I'm gonna go with O'Brien as his last name, and I didn't fully catch the first name, but we'll say Mr. O'Brien does a lovely job narrating this. But the film features an actress played by Natalie Portman, who arrives in Savannah, Georgia, and she's there to observe a woman who many years ago was caught up in one of those adult / child sex scandals that we see sort of, although we see them more with teacher-student relationships, this one is so that nobody can draw, I guess, a direct comparison. They don't dare go that route, even though there have been multiple of those. They decide to make her an employee of a pet store that fell in love with the friend of her 13-year-old son. That's right, 13, 7th grader. We didn't even make this close. We didn't even try to make this like, well, he was 17 and was this? No. The screenwriter here decided to go as low as we could, just to try to make sure that you had that, that nobody got comfortable with this really quickly. And she was 36 at the time, and now they have aged up. She has served her time. She actually had gotten pregnant and had a baby in jail, and there are all these news stories about how she had a kid while in prison. And then, of course, Charles Melton's character ended up having to raise these kids while also kind of being a kid himself. So he's not that far off from his kids. We're actually at the point where he's sending, I believe his youngest is graduating. He has multiple kids in the house. There's one that is, that they mention early on, that has already graduated and comes back to see their sister graduate. But their sister is featured probably, I would say, if there was a fourth billing, the actress that plays the daughter here, she's in a couple of scenes, but everybody else just kind of pops in and out. It's mainly these three that are interacting a lot, with the daughter having slightly more scenes than anybody else. Everybody else is just sort of like a one and done for the most part. But she chose not to move. She stayed in this close-knit community where everyone knows her and everyone knows what she did. And the rest of her family is still there. Her kids are still there, and they have families, and they have kids, and their kids are like the same age now as her kids coming up, and they're like in the same grade level together, and it's the whole thing is just kind of weird. As the youngest one, I should say, anyway, not the older one. Obviously, the older one was the one that she had when she was in jail, but this youngest one that's graduating has kids that are about her age, that are her, I don't know what to call them. What relationship is that? I don't even know. Have something. I don't know. They're Julianne Moore's grandkids, but this is her daughter. So my mind is just wrapping around all of this. This is a very interesting film. The people who think this is a comedy, by the way, it's not. It's not a comedy. It plays this pretty seriously, straight through, all the way through. There might be some like darkly humorous moments, just where you realize what it is that you're talking about, or they're talking about, or saying, or doing, or there's a really bad sort of like Lifetime original movie that you see a few seconds of. That they shot to make it look like, oh, we've already had a movie done about us, and Natalie Portman's like, no, my movie won't be prestigious. It's an indie, like, so she's there to sort of immerse herself in Julianne Moore, to become Julianne Moore. There's a lot of mimicry. Sometimes Julianne Moore will say something and Natalie Portman follows up by saying the exact same thing, but trying to say it as Julianne Moore will say it. It's amazing how chill Julianne Moore is with this in the beginning, and welcoming, and we see sort of behind closed doors that she's a little uncomfortable with it. It's a very complicated character. And Charles Melton's is probably the most complicated of all, and that's why he's getting the praise, because Natalie Portman presents herself pretty much as is. She's like an actress the way exactly she says she is. She's there, she's dedicated, she's devoted. There's no trickery to her character. She's not faking being an actress. Everybody knows who she is. She's famous, she gets recognized, she walks around. There's a scene where she's in the school, in their daughter's school, and she does a class, and the teacher recognizes her as being Juilliard trained. So she is who she says she is. This is not like a surprise, gotcha. I'm actually a stalker. No, it's not that. None of that. She's an actress. She's there really to study Julianne Moore. This is surface value. So, and you get that from her. There are moments where she's in a certain place, in a certain time, and you feel her just trying to like put herself in that headspace. It creates for some weird sort of uncomfortable moments, but at the same time, it's how Natalie Portman shows herself in the best way, is her trying to transform into Julianne Moore and try to get the voice right and the mannerisms and really trying to nail this part. She just seems really concerned with it. She really doesn't seem like she's there to judge. She's really there only judging so that she can get like as much information into her brain to shape this character as possible. It pays off in the end. I don't know that this film really is ruinable, but I don't want to necessarily tell you how the end is, but the end, you sort of see the culmination of everything that Portman has been working on. Meanwhile, Moore spends most of the film just, I would say, kind of puttering around the house. It's like there are people that come over and they're friends, and they were her friends before, and they've just kind of accepted that this is her life. And we see that there are some people who definitely have given her the grace to exist, and some people who have not. There's a package that Natalie Portman picks up at the beginning of the film, and they're like, oh God, somebody's still doing that again. I won't tell you what it is, but she uh, there's an interesting thing that you find out about what she does for a living, um, and how she is able to sort of maintain this life. And she still clearly is working through a lot of like emotional things, but um, I have to say I actually believed Julianne Moore's character does actually love Charles Melton's character. I didn't ever think. I've seen a lot of film critics who say that he's being infantilized in this film. I don't think he is that much. I think you see sort of a boy kind of lost to time, somebody whose childhood was so murky, and his evolution and his growth, that he is in the, which makes him the most interesting character, which is why you end up watching it. But she doesn't go around mothering him the whole time. That's not their dynamic. There are some of those moments, but you could find those exact same moments in any sort of like family sitcom, where like there's the, like in Home Improvement between like Patricia Richardson and Tim Allen. You're gonna find a lot of that same dynamic. So I think it's people who are not being fair to this relationship, and they're just trying to find a way of of trying to be like, well, she's older, so the way she says it to him is very mothering. No, there are plenty of sitcoms where, the mother is of the household is always telling the dad to stop lazing about the house, or clean up your shit, or get your, get it out of here, or trying to stop telling him to be a giant man-child. There are tons of those sitcoms. There are man-child sitcoms everywhere. So just, if you're thinking that because there's a deeper age gap here that it somehow changes that dynamic, I would urge you to start watching those sitcoms again, because there's nothing in this dynamic that suggests that she treats him like her son. That is not the case here. And I push back against all of those critics. And I just don't think they watch enough stuff. I think they watch too much highbrow stuff and not enough of the lowbrow stuff, where people who are of exactly the same age are having this exact same dynamic for comedic reaction. So nothing going on here. They're not trying. This film actually really does approach everything in this sort of weird, take it as you take it, way. Just, here it is. We're not here necessarily to comment. We're just going to present a story. We're going to let Charles Melton carry the reaction. And however you see Charles Melton will answer the question as to whether or not you believe the relationship works, whether or not he's happy, whether or not he's where he's supposed to be. The narration goes goes a little bit into constantly making him look contemplative, and maybe resentful. He's glassy-eyed a little bit more frequently than I would like, considering his actions or the way that he speaks to Julianne Moore. They really seem to be hammering home depression a little early in the narration, when he's not really having that dynamic in the scenes with her. He very much cuddles up to her in bed, and they have, there are moments. There's a scene where, I guess after a party, he still smells like charcoal, and she tells him that he smells like charcoal and he should shower before getting into bed. And I'm like, I feel like that's a conversation that anybody would have had. Like, you smell terrible, please go take a shower and don't get in the sheets, Like, I feel like there are people who work jobs, and that's why they shower before they get into bed. Some people shower in the evening. I don't think that exchanges like that don't really read to me as being like, she's telling him what to do because she's older and he's younger, and they have this like mother-child relationship. I don't think that's really what that is. But he also is his own person. He's shown to be a pretty caring parent in the film, which is shocking. Not incompetent. He's not like an incompetent parent who has no idea what he's doing. Graduation day is obviously very interesting because, as we find out, Julianne Moore is on the sex offender registry, so obviously she can't attend her own daughter's graduation because, you know. So I think Melton is the only one that goes, and I think he doesn't want to mess with the rest of the family, and it's this awkward dynamic, and he's always stuck in the middle of it, and that's what makes his character so interesting. Is even when he's a very subdued character. Otherwise, it's not a very loud character. It's not a very boisterous character. It's not a very scene-stealing character. I think what makes this so interesting is that this season he's up against people who are scene stealers, who have these big, loud performances, and who have these big speeches, and who have this sort of grandiose sense, and every moment he has is just so small. And it's like, what am I pulling from this moment? What is it that his character is thinking? What is he going through? There are little things that you have to look for that Todd Haynes has hidden within his character that really, I think that's what makes the film so nuanced. It has nothing to do with Portman or Moore. It has everything to do with Charles Melton. It's the little choices that he makes. His dad is sitting there smoking, like, I don't know, a suicidal amount of cigarettes. I don't know how else to say that. His ashtray is like overflowing, is what it's like listed as. And so Charles grabs a cigarette, and he doesn't know what to do with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's still trying to figure out, am I an adult? Am I supposed to be doing this? Is this what adults do? You know, there's still some of those moments that are thrown in there. And that's where he feels like his whole, like, he became an adult at a young age. And there is some conversation about, what if I wasn't old enough to make that choice? What if should I have made that choice? Which I think is really interesting, because I think the whole dynamic, he's always assumed that this is the life that he chose for himself. He just chose it really early. And he's always been really confident in the fact that he loves Julianne Moore and all of that. And then Natalie Portman shows up, and I don't know, he just starts, it's like eventually you can't stop hiding from the world around you and how the world around you perceives and sees you, and you have to start asking yourself, am I a victim? And I don't think he's ever asked himself that question, which is really interesting. He's been trapped inside of this bubble, surrounded by the people who still accept them for who they are, for them choosing to be together and raising their child's children together. And he's never really had that moment to be able to sit and ponder life. So it's a very interesting performance. I don't know if it's my favorite supporting actor performance of the year, but it definitely shows a lot of what Charles Melton is capable of as an actor, especially coming off of Riverdale. So absolutely, I think this is an actor that I would say deserves a nomination. I don't know if I'm at win level status yet. I don't want to go there immediately and be like, this was the best performance of the year, but it's so nuanced, and it's so subdued in some scenes. He loves to collect chrysalises so that he can help repopulate the monarch butterfly population. And it's such an interesting hobby of his, that he's doing. And he talks about, he's really excited about this Facebook group that he's in, about people who are doing the same thing, and they're starting to see those populations grow and come back to life. And I don't know, there's just so many little interesting things here that they've chosen to throw into the screenplay and with the director that really just kind of stand out. I think it's a strong screenplay. Again, I don't know if this is the best screenplay. It might be my favorite thing Todd Haynes has ever directed in terms of story. Now, Todd Haynes is also a very visual style director, so it's really hard for me to say that now as a blind film critic, because Far From Heaven is beautiful to look at. Even Carol, which I thought was slow, I didn't love Carol, it's a great film to look at. So I have no idea what May December looks like, but Todd Haynes films have this uh, the shine to them, almost like you're watching a painting, like you're watching Nighthawks come to life, if that makes any sense. That's sort of what it feels like to watch a Todd Haynes film. Would be to watch like a painting that isn't supposed to be moving, but it somehow is, just coming to life with these characters, and you're finding out more about them. And I think that's what makes him an incredibly strong director. I do think this is a really good job from him, because he really does, for the most part, try to keep it all level. He doesn't try to make this a tawdry Lifetime original movie. He really does try to present something from a consistent perspective, and I think that's great. I think that's why the film works. Audio description wise, I'm kind of neutral on it. I think early on, before we're really getting to know Charles Melton's character, and because he doesn't speak too much in the beginning, it's so hard to say it's a supporting performance, because he feels like he has more screen time than Julianne Moore, but maybe just not quite as much as Natalie Portman. He's stuck in this weird place, where I feel like he's the second largest character in the thing. So he's definitely the leading male character. But the film follows Natalie Portman, but he does have quite a bit of screen time. And there were some times where the film was pointing out like his facial expressions and the choices of the words that we were using all suggested that he was depressed. And we were making those choices really early on, and I kind of wanted to get to know him a little bit more first and see him interact in the scenes, because the way that his face was being described and his facial reactions to things didn't match the scenes he was in. So either he was incredibly good at masking his depression his whole life, or I don't know. I feel like I never got a fair shot from him. I feel like the whole time I was supposed to pick up on the fact that something was wrong with him. Like he was constantly living in regret. But script-wise, it feels like there's more of a turning point in the film where he starts to sort of wonder whether or not the choices that he made were really choices he made, or were they choices that were made for him. And it's sort of from that moment on that I feel like it's more important to see that sort of transformation. I never got to see the happy dad side of him, and he seems to really enjoy his kid. Like he really seems to enjoy being a parent. It's not something he regrets. It's not something he ever really expresses regret of, is having a child. So it's an interesting film. I really liked it, and it's definitely the best thing that, in my opinion, that Todd Haynes has directed since Far From Heaven. So definitely check this out. I totally understand why Netflix snapped this one up out of Cannes this year, and good choice. So I'm just kind of fascinated by this film, even with the little short things here and there. I think they kind of amount to it not being a 100% perfect film, but I did really love this film, and I really hope people give it a chance and watch it. When I clicked on it, it was already a couple of days out, and it was number 6 on movies, and it was behind things that had previously been released. Like, this is its debut weekend on Netflix. Why is this not number 1? So anyway, I'm gonna give May December an A-. Yeah, I don't know that I would go with. I don't think it's not gonna make my top 10 best picture nominations of the year, but it's a very interesting film, and I'm very glad I got to see it. A couple of choices. Honestly, some of them even come just from how the audio description chose to treat him from the very beginning. And I kind of wish that hadn't happened. I kind of wish he had been. The film takes a very neutral approach, and I kind of wish we had more of that with his character and less glassy-eyed, less droopy, looking exhausted and sad and contemplative from just from the moment we meet him. It just, because that's not how I feel like the film shapes. So anyway, maybe there's no other way to describe him. I don't know, but I feel like the film made a choice about him earlier in the narration than it does in the script. So, but that's it for me. Please click that subscribe button. I'm trying to break 200 this year. It's my year-end goal. I'm pretty close, but I haven't gotten there yet. I do have a website, MacTheMovieGuy.com. You can follow me on X, Threads, or Instagram at MacTheMovieGuy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org. It'll let you know what has audio description, where you can watch it. And you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. It'll let you know who's narrating your favorite films and television series. That's it for me. I'll watch something else and see you guys on the other side.